What happens when an untouchable billionaire, accustomed to commanding boardrooms and dismissing suitors, enters a blind date expecting nothing more than a cynical joke, only for her traumatized, silent daughter to run toward a stranger in a faded shirt, wrap her arms around his waist, and shatter 4 years of silence with the single word, "Daddy"? The whole restaurant falls into absolute stillness. This quiet man is no ordinary stranger. He is an undercover Navy SEAL veteran carrying a solemn battlefield promise. Tonight, a long-buried truth will forever change their lives, revealing that true wealth cannot heal a broken heart. Before we immerse ourselves in this deeply moving story of sacrifice, silent devotion, and unexpected healing, if you believe that a single act of genuine kindness can pierce through the darkest storms of life, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment below sharing where in the world you are joining us from tonight. Your constant support fuels our mission to bring you stories that remind us of what truly matters in the human heart. Now let us begin. The setting sun cast a cold, metallic copper sheen across the glass skyline of downtown Boston. High above the bustling noise of the financial district, on the top floor of the Sterling Global Headquarters, 63 stories of reinforced steel and smoked glass held the reign of one woman, Emma Sterling. 38 years old, Emma was a titan of modern industry. As the founder and chief executive officer of a billion-dollar biotechnology firm, her decisions altered international markets, and her face regularly graced the covers of global business journals. To the outside world, she was the ultimate embodiment of elegance, intellect, and ruthless efficiency. She moved through life clad in tailored Italian silk suits, her sharp features framed by dark blonde hair pulled into a flawless bun, and her gray-green eyes projecting an impenetrable barrier of authority. Yet, behind the soundproof glass of her corner office, when the secretaries had departed and the glowing monitors dimmed to standby mode, Emma was simply a mother drowning in a private ocean of grief. In the far corner of her expansive office, sat on a plush, charcoal leather sofa, was her 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Lily was a child carved from fragile porcelain. She had wide, dark chestnut eyes that once sparkled with boundless joy, but for the past 4 years, those eyes had contained only the quiet, haunted stillness of an empty room. Wrapped tightly in an oversized cashmere sweater that dwarfed her tiny frame, Lily sat with her knees pulled tightly to her chest. In her small, pale hands, she gripped a worn plush rabbit named Snowy. The toy was faded, its left velvet ear frayed at the seam from endless nervous tugging, but it was the girl's sole anchor to a world she no longer trusted. 4 years prior, Lily's father, Emma's husband, Commander James Sterling of the United States Navy, had vanished into the shadow of a classified overseas operation. 2 officers in dress whites had arrived at their suburban doorstep on a raining Tuesday morning, carrying a folded brass-rimmed flag, a box of medals, and a letter that offered no details, no closure, and no body to bury. From that devastating morning onward, something inside little Lily had locked shut. The vibrant child who used to sing nursery rhymes and dance across the hardwood floors became entirely mute to the world. Psychologists, neuroscientists, and elite child therapists hired with Emma's vast fortune had all failed. Lily lived in a fortress of silence, retreating behind her plush rabbit whenever strangers drew near, cowering at sudden noises, and shrinking from any human touch other than her mother's. "Lily, sweetheart, it's time for us to pack up," Emma whispered softly, stepping away from the floor-to-ceiling glass panel. The sharp, commanding edge that defined Emma's boardroom persona dissolved completely when she addressed her daughter. She knelt gracefully beside the sofa, her diamond ring catching the dim amber glow of the desk lamp. She smoothed a stray lock of dark hair behind Lily's ear. The little girl did not speak, but her dark eyes shifted toward Emma, giving a single subtle nod before squeezing Snowy tighter against her chest. Emma sighed inwardly, a heavy weight pressing against her ribs. She was exhausted. Her life was an endless marathon of corporate battles by day and heart-wrenching loneliness by night. To make matters more frustrating, tonight she had committed to an engagement she viewed as absurd. 3 weeks earlier, her lifelong friend and corporate legal counsel, Elizabeth, had practically backed Emma into a corner during lunch. "Emma, you are suffocating in this golden cage," Elizabeth had scolded with affectionate firmness. "You work 18 hours a day, you live in a secluded mansion surrounded by security guards, and you haven't sat down for a casual meal in 4 years. I am setting you up on a blind date. 1 hour. That's all I'm asking." Emma had scoffed. "Elizabeth, I don't have time for vanity projects. I manage 3,000 employees and a traumatized child. And you are killing yourself in the process," Elizabeth had countered, pressing a handwritten address into Emma's palm. "He isn't one of your venture capitalist sharks. He isn't interested in your stock portfolio. Just go. If he turns out to be a bore, you can fake an executive emergency and leave after 30 minutes. Do it for yourself. Do it to breathe." Reluctantly, Emma had conceded just to end the relentless persuasion. In her mind, she had already profiled the man she was about to meet. Likely some aspiring middle manager or self-absorbed bachelor eager to impress a billionaire businesswoman, ready to drop names of expensive whiskeys, flex his country club membership, or cast greedy glances at the sterling legacy. She took her daughter's tiny hand, gathered her designer handbag, and made her way toward the private elevator, completely unaware that the trajectory of her life was about to collide with a ghost from her darkest past. The sleek, obsidian black luxury SUV glided through the rain-slicked streets of Boston, leaving behind the gleaming towers of the financial center and descending into the gritty, historic neighborhood of South Boston. Emma peered out the tinted window with mild disapproval. The destination Elizabeth had chosen was not a Michelin-starred dining establishment in Back Bay, nor was it a private club overlooking the harbor. The driver pulled up curbside in front of a modest, 2-story brick building with a weathered wooden sign that swung gently in the autumn breeze. Carved into the damp oak were the words, "The Anchor Tavern." The air outside smelled of salt mist from the nearby docks, roasted garlic, and charbroiled meat. Warm yellow light spilled out from the leaded glass windows, reflecting off the wet cobblestones. "Stay close to Mommy, Lily," Emma instructed gently as she shielded her daughter under a large black umbrella. Entering the tavern, Emma felt instantly out of place. Her tailored dress and diamond jewelry stood out sharply against the rustic interior of exposed brick, dark mahogany booths, and flickering wall sconces. The air was filled with the low hum of neighborhood chatter, the gentle clink of thick glass mugs, and the warm, golden acoustic melodies playing from an old jukebox in the corner. Emma's sharp eyes swept the dining room, looking for a man in a crisp suit looking anxiously at his watch. Instead, her gaze was drawn to a secluded corner booth tucked near a brick fireplace. Sitting there alone was a man who looked entirely disconnected from the vanity of the modern world. His name was Daniel Carter. Daniel did not wear a bespoke suit or a luxury watch. He wore a simple, heavyweight gray crewneck shirt with the sleeves pushed up to his forearms, revealing thick, muscular wrists and a faint, silvered scar trailing down his left radius. His dark jeans were faded at the knees, and his feet were clad in rugged, perfectly polished dark leather combat boots. He was broad-shouldered and powerfully built like a wall of solid granite, yet his posture held no arrogance or aggression. Instead, he radiated an extraordinary, grounded stillness, the kind of stillness seen in wild apex predators or men who had spent years in total isolation. His hair was cropped short in a precise military cut, silvered lightly at the temples, framing a jawline etched in hard angles. But it was his eyes that caught Emma off guard. A piercing, steel blue color that possessed immense depth, carrying both intense alertness and an understated, profound sorrow. Emma approached the booth, her heels clicking softly on the hardwood floor. "Daniel?" she asked, her tone carrying her habitual professional detachment. The man reacted instantly, rising to his feet in a single, fluid movement that spoke of deep physical conditioning. He stood at over 6'2", towering over her, yet he inclined his head with profound, unpretentious politeness. "Yes, you must be Emma," Daniel replied. His voice was a low, resonant baritone, deep and smooth, like stones washed by ocean tides. "I am," Emma said, slipping into the wooden booth opposite him. "And this is Lily." Daniel did not immediately offer a scripted corporate greeting. He didn't offer a fake smile or shower Emma with flattery about her appearance or reputation. He simply looked at her with a calm, respectful nod before adjusting his posture to lower his line of sight toward the small child clinging to Emma's side. Lily, as expected, shrank backward, hiding her face behind the frayed plush ears of Snowy. Emma prepared herself to deliver her standard warning. "Please don't mind her, she doesn't speak to people." However, Daniel did something entirely unexpected. He didn't reach out to touch the child. He didn't make loud, exaggerated baby talk, nor did he press her to come out of her shell. He simply leaned back slightly, giving Lily ample physical space, and looked at the stuffed animal with deadpan seriousness. "That rabbit looks like he's seen some serious tactical deployments," Daniel said softly, his deep voice carrying a hint of quiet warmth. "What's his name?" Lily froze. Slowly, very slowly, her small head peeked out from behind Emma's arm. Her wide brown eyes locked onto Daniel's steel blue ones. Emma held her breath. Usually, when male acquaintances attempted to speak to Lily, the child would tremble or cry. But there was something about Daniel's demeanor, a complete lack of threat, an aura of absolute protection, that seemed to act as a shield against the girl's panic. "Snowy," Lily whispered. The sound was barely louder than a breath, so faint that Emma almost missed it. Daniel nodded slowly, treating the girl's response with the gravity of a high-level briefing. "Snowy, that's a strong name. He looks like the kind of guard rabbit who stays awake all night watching the perimeter so you can sleep." A tiny, almost imperceptible shift occurred in Lily's expression. Her mouth twitched, and for the first time in months, the tense shadow on her small face loosened. She gave a single, slow nod. Emma sat frozen in utter astonishment. It had taken world-renowned child psychologists 6 months just to get Lily to make eye contact. This man in a faded gray shirt had drawn a spoken word out of her in less than 2 minutes. The waiter arrived, placing a glass bottle of apple juice in front of Lily alongside their meals. The factory cap on the glass bottle was sealed tightly. Lily grabbed the bottle, her small fingers straining against the metal rim, trying to twist it open. As her efforts failed, her shoulders began to tighten, panic creeping back into her eyes at her own helplessness. Emma started to reach over to take the bottle, but Daniel moved first with subtle, effortless grace. He didn't grab the bottle out of her hands. Instead, he rested his thick forearm on the table and open-handed gestured to the bottle, silently asking for permission. Lily hesitated for a second, then slid the bottle across the mahogany wood toward him. Daniel took the bottle, applied a tiny fraction of pressure with his thumb and forefinger, and opened the cap with a crisp pop. He then grabbed a clean paper napkin, wiped the top rim of the bottle to remove any stray glass dust, and gently slid it back to the little girl. "There you go, visual clear," Daniel said gently. "Thank you," Lily murmured again, taking a tiny sip. "You're very welcome, little one," Daniel replied, offering a brief, warm smile that transformed his rugged, hardened face into something exceptionally gentle. Emma looked across the table at Daniel, her cynical armor beginning to crack. "You're not what I expected, Daniel," she admitted softly, tracing the stem of her water glass. "Elizabeth didn't give me many details about you." "There isn't much to give," Daniel said, taking a sip of his black coffee. "I live a quiet life down by the shipyards." "What do you do for work?" "I do security consulting and maritime maintenance now," Daniel answered neutrally. "I keep things working." "And before that?" Emma pressed, her keen eye taking in his upright posture, his habit of facing the main entrance, and the faint silver scars along his knuckles. "Military." Daniel quieted for a moment, his gaze drifting toward the small fireplace where logs crackled softly. "Yes, I served for a long time. Army." "Navy," Daniel replied softly. Emma paused, a slight pang hitting her chest at the mention of the branch her late husband had served in. "Special Forces?" Daniel gave a modest, almost solemn nod, declining to boast. I was with the teams. But that was a lifetime ago. The dinner progressed smoothly. For the first time in 4 years, the crushing pressure in Emma's chest eased. Daniel didn't ask about her net worth or corporate acquisitions. Instead, he asked about her day-to-day life, listening with profound attention and offering thoughtful perspectives. He maintained a quiet awareness of Lily, ensuring she felt included without forcing her into the spotlight. By 8 o'clock, rain lashed against the windows. It's getting late, Emma said, checking her watch. I should get Lily home. Of course, Daniel said, laying down cash for the bill before Emma could reach for her purse. When she offered, he gently raised a hand, declining with calm authority. Emma smiled and stood up to help Lily down. Then the world shattered. Lily did not reach for her mother. Instead, the 6-year-old child stepped intentionally around the table and walked directly up to Daniel. Lily? Sweetheart, what's wrong? Emma asked, confused. Lily ignored her mother, looking up into the soldier's battle-scarred face. Tears welled in her dark eyes, spilling over pale cheeks. Daniel stopped instantly, dropping to one knee so his steel blue eyes were level with hers. Before he could speak, Lily reached out and grabbed tight hold of his thick gray sleeve. She leaned her head against his leg, wrapping her frail arms around his knee, shaking with silent sobs. Lily, honey, don't pull on him, Emma started. Squeezing her eyes shut, Lily let out a voice that echoed through the quiet restaurant. A voice dead to the world for 4 long years. Daddy! The word cut through the ambient hum like a lightning strike. Tables nearby went silent. Emma froze mid-step, the air rushing from her lungs. Lily, Emma whispered, her voice cracking. Baby, what did you say? The child clung to Daniel with desperate strength, her tiny voice crying out again, louder this time. Daddy, you came back. Daddy! Daniel stood motionless, looking completely undone. His strong hands hovered for a fraction of a second, trembling visibly, before he slowly knelt lower on the hard floor. Sweetheart, Daniel whispered, his throat tightening. Look at me. I'm not your daddy. Lily shook her head frantically, tears flying. You are. You smell like him. Your eyes are like his picture. Daddy, don't go away again. Emma dropped her handbag, falling to her knees beside her daughter. Lily, no. Baby, this is Mr. Carter. Your daddy went to heaven. No. Lily cried out, the long dormant voice bursting forth like a broken dam. He has daddy's coat smell. He has daddy's eyes. Mama, it's him. Emma looked up at Daniel, shock and panic rising in her chest. She stared at his steel blue eyes and gentle presence. Years ago, Emma had placed a framed photograph of James on Lily's nightstand, telling her, your daddy had eyes like the ocean, and he was the strongest, kindest man in the world. Daniel possessed those exact eyes. Who are you? Emma asked, her voice a fragile whisper. Who are you really? Daniel closed his eyes for a long moment, letting out a heavy breath he seemed to have held for years. When he opened them, they shimmering with unshed tears. Reaching into his rear pocket, Daniel pulled out a battered leather wallet, unzipping an inner compartment to reveal a single laminated 3x5 photograph. He extended his hand, presenting it to Emma. Emma took the picture with trembling fingers. The photo showed 2 young men in desert camouflaged gear standing shoulder to shoulder in front of a military helicopter. Both were smiling broadly, arms draped over each other's shoulders. The man on the right was James Sterling, her husband. The man on the left was Daniel Carter. Emma gasped, a sob breaking from her throat. James, oh God, James. She looked up at Daniel. You knew him. He was my team leader, Daniel said, his low voice breaking. He was my brother, Emma. The restaurant around them faded away. 4 years ago, Mazar-i-Sharif, northern Afghanistan. Daniel began, his gaze drifting into memory. A routine extraction operation went wrong. We were ambushed in a dry riverbed, pinned down and outnumbered 4-1. Emma covered her mouth, listening intently. James was leading the rear guard, Daniel continued, his jaw tightening. An enemy grenade cleared our wall. James didn't hesitate. He threw himself forward, tackled me into a drainage ditch, and took the worst of the shrapnel himself. A tear escaped Daniel's steel-blue eyes. I pulled him into cover, Daniel whispered. I tried to plug the wounds, called for the medevac. But as I held him there, James grabbed my vest and said, Danny, promise me you'll keep an eye on my Emma and my little girl. Protect them if I don't make it home. Daniel swallowed hard. I swore it on my life. A few minutes later, James passed away in my arms. Emma wept silently, clutching the picture. Lily rested her face against Daniel's shoulder, listening to the deep vibrations of his chest. Why didn't you ever come to us? Emma sobbed. Why did you hide? Daniel looked down at his scarred hands. Because when I got back home, I was broken. I spent 2 years in military hospitals dealing with severe trauma and shrapnel injuries. When I was discharged, I searched for you. But I saw what you had built, a billionaire CEO living in a gated mansion. And me? I was a traumatized ex-soldier living in a small dockside apartment. I thought my presence would only reopen your wounds. Then why are you here tonight? Because of Elizabeth, Daniel revealed quietly. She helped process James' estate. I reached out to her last month just asking for an update on how you were doing. She told me the truth, that despite your wealth, you were drowning in grief, and Lily hadn't spoken in 4 years. Elizabeth forced me to come tonight, saying you needed someone who loved James to show you it was safe to live again. Lily lifted her head, reaching out her small hand to gently wipe a tear from Daniel's rough cheek. Don't cry, Daddy's friend, Lily whispered softly. Snowy will watch the perimeter for you. Daniel let out a choked laugh, pulling the little girl into a protective embrace. The darkness that had haunted them both began to yield to light. That autumn night marked a quiet turning point. Daniel did not move into Emma's estate or accept financial support. He maintained his humble dockside apartment and security work, preserving his fierce independence. However, he kept his promise as an unwavering pillar of strength. The changes in 6-year-old Lily were miraculous. Her recovery unfolded through hundreds of small moments. Every afternoon, Daniel's modest truck pulled up near Lily's academy. While wealthy parents conversed about stock markets, Daniel waited silently by the oak trees. When Lily ran out, her face lit up, and she would run straight into his arms. He taught her to ride a bicycle along the Charles River. When she fell and scraped her knee, Daniel didn't panic. Kneeling beside her, he would say, "Pain is just information, little warrior. It means your body is fixing itself. Let's stand tall and take the hill again." Lily would wipe her eyes, nod bravely, and climb back onto her pedals. During a severe mid-December blizzard, heavy ice tore down power lines, plunging Emma's estate into darkness. The howling wind sent Lily into a severe panic attack. Suddenly, 3 firm knocks sounded at the door. Emma opened it to find Daniel covered in snow. He had ridden his motorcycle through 10 miles of freezing gale, knowing the storm would cut power and remembering how terrified Lily was of thunder. Without a word, Daniel stepped inside and walked to Lily's room. Sitting on the floor in the dark, he pulled a small brass lantern from his pack, illuminating the room with a warm glow. "Perimeter is secure, little warrior," Daniel said calmly. "I've got the night watch." Within minutes, the trembling stopped. Lily crawled out from under her bed, wrapped herself in a blanket, and fell fast asleep against Daniel's knee. Emma sat beside them in the dim lantern light, sliding her fingers into Daniel's rough hand, bound by shared grief, healing, and absolute trust. Spring arrived in Boston, breaking the winter ice. On a warm Sunday morning, a year after their meeting at the Anchor Tavern, they parked near a quiet cliff in Marblehead overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. Daniel stepped out in a simple navy suit, walking toward a granite memorial stone dedicated to Commander James Sterling and his fallen squad. Beside him stood Emma in a white summer dress, with Lily walking between them holding both their hands. Daniel knelt before the marker, placing a shiny silver Navy SEAL trident emblem on the cold stone. "I brought them, brother," Daniel whispered into the wind. "They are safe. I will spend the rest of my days making sure they never walk alone." Emma laid a bouquet of white roses beside the trident, looking at Daniel with deep love and respect. Lily squeezed Daniel's hand. "Look, Mommy," she said, pointing toward the sparkling water. "Daddy is watching us. And he's happy because Daniel is here." Daniel hoisted Lily onto his broad shoulder as she giggled, wrapping her arms around his neck. Emma stepped close, resting her head against his chest. The golden cage of wealth was gone, replaced by the sanctuary of a real family. Years later, when business journalists asked billionaire Emma Sterling to name the most valuable moment of her life, she would never cite a corporate merger or technology breakthrough. She would look out her window, smile, and say, "The greatest moment of my life was walking into a small tavern expecting a joke, only to find a hero carrying a painful past and holding a promise that money could never buy." True strength does not lie in bank accounts or titles. It lies in the quiet dignity of a person who keeps their word when no one is watching, holding light through someone else's dark storm. Daniel Carter saved lives on battlefields, but his greatest act of bravery was simpler. He chose to keep a silent vow. The quiet stranger sitting alone at a restaurant might be fighting a silent battle. A person in modest clothes might carry a heart richer than gold. A single act of genuine kindness, a quiet promise kept, can save a human soul. You do not need $1 billion to change someone's world. All you need is a little heart, a little courage, and the kindness to care. Thank you for joining us today. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs a reminder that hope still exists. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts below. Until next time, stay safe, take care of one another, and always choose kindness.